So thank you all for your time today. We'll start now. What I want to cover today is Presentation Builder. I think most of you have already looked at it, so it should be fairly straightforward. Uh, really, it's pretty clear. We'll then slide into reports. There are two styles of reports. I tend to focus on the three C's. We'll talk about section templates, text templates, and we can look at doing PowerPoint and Word presentations, but what I'd prefer to do is spend more time actually on real time and how we can use that with clients and be, highly effective. So let's begin by looking at Presentation Builder. And again, I think most of you have looked at this. It's very straightforward. The point of it is that whatever we set up in the way of color sets and so on will apply equally to VisionWorks, CorpWorks, and TrustWorks. So that ensures consistent branding across all three programs. If you go to the cover page, you will see three tabs down here, VW, CW, TW, but all they do is control the text that's on the cover page of the report. So if I go to CW, the text on the cover page would just say plan, TW just says plan, but of course you can edit that to be whatever you want. In the case of VisionWorks, it says financial plan for a financial or life plan, but you can see also it can be different for a retirement plan or a retirement and estate plan. I'll also remind you that you can save your settings to the presentation builder folder as a VSR file. There's presentation builder. And then that way you can send that VSR file to anybody else. And then all they need to do is save it wherever they wish on their computer, click load from file, locate the VSR file, and then load it in. And then all computers that are being used will have the consistent branding applied to all of the reports. As far as the cover page is concerned, you can see the ability to add a logo, obviously your name and so on down here. The plan prepared by, etc., is actually controlled on the print tab. So on the print tab, this is where you could go click the edit button and then put in all your name, contact information, and so on. You can see that's being applied over here. And it's also possible to click the add button and have a number of different plan prepared by. So again, with an organization, if you're using the software, you can set that up so that several names can show up. So let's go back to the cover page. As far as the text color for the main titles, the font you use, the point size, and so on, that's all controlled here. If we go to cover page logos, you see I've added one logo. You can have two, and you can also have a sidebar that would appear down the left side. Titles, there are two title styles. Text is just plain text. Again, you get to control the text color, font, point size, etc. But title bars will put in a bar, and then you can control the color of the title bars here. And then what you want to do with the text color, you can see this is in black from the previous. But what you want to do with the text color is change it to a color that then stands out on the bar. So let's go back here to text, and we'll keep that text color. As far as headers and footers are concerned, again, font, point size, etc. And you can choose to include text, add the text color you want, include a line, add the line color, same with footers and even with page numbers. So again, as far as headers and footers are concerned, you have lots of control. And then if you go to text blocks, here you can control the font and the point size and the color for all of the main text in a report. And then when we look at tables, which we can see over here on the right, again, you can control the header color, the header text, subheader color and text. So if I select purple, you can see I now have white text on a purple background and so on. Also, I want you to notice lines in the table text color. Instead of having black lines that you might find fairly harsh, you can soften the lines in a table if you wish. And if you don't want to include lines, then all you can do, or all you need to do, is select white, and then there won't be any lines in the table. So that's just a little trick. Remember, anytime you don't want something to show up, you select white. And if we look at graphs, and this is a bar graph here, you can see there's no y-axis line or x-axis line, and that's because I've selected white as the axis line color. So again, if I select purple, then I put in those lines. But white means I don't have any lines. Same idea with inner lines. You can soften those if you wish. There's just a question that's come up here. Don't know why Ovi is waiting in the lobby. I've a couple of times included join. Okay, hopefully that works. The other thing that you'll see here are these donut graphs. And again, you can control the colors of them. If we look at VisionWorks and options and color set, this is where you can control the output group colors. One of the issues with the VisionWorks software is that because we model so many different things, it becomes very difficult to, refine the color set down to just a few colors. We end up having, many, many different colors only because we want to see certain things stand out on pie graphs or stack bar graphs or whatever. So, you can't have things being close to the same color because then it just blends together. But when it comes to parties, you can see that you can control the party colors here. And these party colors by default are the ones that are being used here. So if you want to change these colors, you may also want to change the colors in the options color set parties tab, so that you have the consistent colors. As far as graphics are concerned, you may or may not want to include graphics in reports, but again, you can control the colors so that they blend with your corporate color. So that's basically a quick run through of Presentation Builder and your ability to set the colors for branding purposes. Does anyone have any questions? I think you'll find it's fairly straightforward.
Not yet.
Okay, so let's look at VisionWorks, and we're going to talk about reports today. And I'll spend a little bit of time on this, but not too much. I'm sure most of you are, fairly familiar with the report functionality. So let's just go to do reports. I will just talk a little bit about the to-do list and how it works. So if we go to the to-do by year tab, you can see protection planning actions. So this is after you've done any insurance calculations. In this case, it's saying that as far as estate insurance is concerned for Bill, there's not much because most of his assets are going to roll over to Sue and therefore are tax-free. But if we look at Sue, we see then that in her estate, assuming that she's the second to die, that there'll be a significant tax impact on the estate. So The insurance calculation for the additional estate need is saying if you want to keep your estate whole and have insurance available to pay the tax man, then this is the amount that you'd need. And notice that you would click this checkbox to include it in the to-do list. Now, obviously, I've done this some time ago, so I'm going to put in a date for 2021 so it shows on the to-do list. So selecting the checkbox is what's going to actually include something on the to-do list. So I've used that. If we go down to document actions, we've got PAs for Sue. And again, I'm just going to change this to the current year. Same thing here. And then when we go down to the years, then there are different things that we can do. Now, my suggestion to you is that you include a mix of things that clients will find enjoyable, as well as what I'll call financial planning tasks. So if it comes to a vacation, you can go in, you can edit the text, include something, give it a priority, and again, put in a date. But I would include a mix of things that clients find enjoyable and the task things, just because we don't want a to-do list that's all tasks. And then you can include whatever you want, make a contribution to the RSP, whatever it might be. So whatever you choose to include, then when you click the to-do list, those are the things that will now be included in the to-do list. You can see some of these were still in there from 2019, but you can see the things that we edited are now showing the correct dates. There is a similar function with vision by year. So in this case, if we went to own a sport utility, we could include it in the vision list in the report. But it's basically exactly the same concept. So let's go to the report tab now. And I just want to point out that there are actually two styles. The old original style, which we call default, is a very traditional financial planning style to a report. And then one of the things we introduced a few years ago is the style that we call the 3 C's. And the whole point of a report, of course, is that it has to tell a story. So, what are the things you want to have and do in life? That's what you're planning for. What's your financial starting point? How are we going to get you from where you are to where you want to be? So the first thing would be, if you embrace the 3 C's approach, is how can we help you save taxes, something that everybody should look to do. And then if somebody is in that house rich, cash poor position, or simply decides they want to downsize a residence at some point in life, then there's a section on converting wealth. And then there's a section on creating wealth, both through career income and investments. And then there's a section on conserving wealth with, the spending plan. So it walks through those different sections, and then, of course, looks at the insurance output and the estate output. So you can select sections and subsections that you want to include in a report. You can add your own sections, and you can just include a general text that you find from some source that you want in a section. You can change the order of the sections just by selecting them and using the up and down arrows. So you can position sections wherever you want, add your own sections, and so on. But what you can also do is make selections and save those selections as a template. So if I click the save button, you'll notice I have a doctor's template, a business template, and so on. So what that means is that if I'm dealing with a doctor, then maybe I want my report to be relatively short, maybe very graphical, something that we can go through fairly easily. So all I need to do is click the load button and load my doctor's template, and then I'll have the sections and subsections that I think work best for doctors. You'll notice in this particular case, I haven't selected the appendix. The appendix has tables of annual net cash flow for every year of the plan, income assets every year, net worth every year. So that it adds up to quite a few pages of just numbers. So my decision is that's not appropriate for doctors. However, I might feel that for a business person, having an appendix with a lot of detailed numbers would suit the business person. So I might have many of the same sections and subsections as I do for a doctor, but now I've got the appendix and I've got the annual net cash flow, income assets, and net worth tables. So you can create these section templates in a way that you think is most suitable for a particular audience and vary it from, client to client. There are also text templates, and I'm just going to click this report options. You can see that right now we have the standard text template selected. But what I could also do is I could copy that and I could create a template that I use for clients who are already retired. So if I've got a section in the report, which is income assets, let's say, it may be that if I'm dealing with a client who's still working, that I want the text to be something about accumulating income producing assets for the retirement years. And maybe that's my standard text, my pre-retirement client. But then for somebody already retired, I want the text to speak in terms of now, using those accumulated income assets in order to be able to do the things we want to have them do in our retirement years. So all I'd need to do then is switch to my post-retirement text template, and I would load that text in. So in order to create a report, I can, select a section template that I think is appropriate for the audience. I can then select a text template that, is pre-retirement, post-retirement. And the other thing to keep in mind is that when you do open a plan, you can go through the text and change our text. So if I just click print preview, we'll quickly build a report. By the way, it takes a few, takes a bit of time to build a report. And the reason is if you had originally done any of the tax optimization and seen the result, but subsequently went in and made changes, changed vacation expenses, whatever it might be. When building the report, what the report does is it goes through all the tax optimization one more time to make sure that it's absolutely up to date. It's virtually the last thing that's being done, because any other changes you make could affect that tax optimization routine. So it takes a bit to assemble the report because of a recalculation of the tax optimization in the background. But what I just want to show you is that when it comes to the text, you can go in and edit text in two ways. You can decide on the sections you want in a report, go through, go to each text block, edit it, save the text as your default text. So that would then be your standard text. And then what you can, so your text will be loaded whenever you do a plan. But then what you can do is you can go through and you can edit your default text in order to personalize it for a client. So just keep in mind that the text we offer certainly can be changed to suit your style. Does anybody have questions about that? We'll see this in a second when we. So let's just open this up and we'll page forward. So if I went to this text, which I may or may not want to include, I can click OK. I want to edit the text. I could make an editing change, which I'm not going to do just because it takes time. But when I do make that editing change, I would have the opportunity then to save that text, if you can see it, as your default text. And then you would be able to, once you've done that, edit it again, and you'd be asked if you want to save it for as your default text or just for this file only. So obviously, when you get into more specific client-centered text, you'd be saving for this file only. Any questions about that?
I have a question.
Yes.
It's Ryan.
Yes, Ryan.
I noticed on your text template that if you click on it, the templates you have there, you only have, I think, two that you can see. I have, like, for some reason, a whole bunch of them. I have one that says assessment and one that says plan.
Okay, so I've got standard. This is for a regular financial plan, standard post-retirement. So, standard is pre-retirement, post-retirement. But then I've also got retirement plan, pre-retirement, same concept. Talk about accumulating assets for retirement, or a retirement plan that's post-retirement, using up those assets during retirement. Same idea with the retirement and estate plan, pre and post. So these 5, if I recall, are defaults that ship with the software. Possibly all 6 of them are. You may have created text templates for different clients. It's hard. I wouldn't be able to tell.
It looks like it was, well, it doesn't matter, but it just, like, it says retirement assessment and then retirement plan, right? Retirement and estate assessment, retirement and estate plan. So are they the same or are they different? I have no idea. I don't think I created them, but.
Retirement plan, retirement and estate plan. Sorry, can you say what they were again?
Sure. So the first one, for example, says retirement and estate assessment post. And
then, yes. That's just the version of what you have. What we did, I don't know, 6 months ago, I can't remember, was we changed the names from retirement assessment and retirement and estate assessment to just retirement plan and retirement and estate plan. It's much simpler.
Okay.
So that's all. It's just changing the words, but the content would be essentially the same. So any other questions about this? One of the disadvantages, or really the only disadvantage of the built-in reports, is that when you go to edit text, it takes a bit to save each text block that you enter. So when you customize text for a client or personalize it for a client, what ends up happening is when you save a text block, it might take a minute to save. So the advantage of looking at the Word reports and the way we built these Word reports, let me just bring one up here, sorry. The way we built these Word reports is that they 100% follow the same layout. The templates follow the same layout as the 3 C's approach. But the advantage being that when you edit text, then it saves virtually instantly because it's just a Word document. So if you choose to, then you can use, the Word templates. The only thing is, if you do use these, my recommendation to you is that you take a Word template. So let me go and bring one up here. So I'll just go to Documents, Vision Systems, Word Documents, and now you can see the templates down here. So I'll bring up the VisionWorks basic template. So you'd have to go through, replace this logo with your logo, replace the cover page text, etc. But what I would recommend you do is that you take this document and copy it so that you don't lose the one we ship, and then take your copy and go through, for example, and delete content and save, that version as your doctor's template. Open ours again, delete content, save it as your business person's template, that kind of idea, so that again, you have different Word documents that are more tailored to your audience. There is also what's called an add-in. And again, I won't get into a lot of this today, but what this does is it allows you to go in and change all the colors and so on. So you can see, for example, that the colors selected here are 064, 128, that's red, green, blue, the primary colors. And then this is the blue here. You can see it in the title bars of the tables. So I can select any color set I want, and then I could, for example, click this button that says all head fill. You can see it's a table, and it shows it's in the tables group. And if I made the color set brown, then what it would do is it would go in and change all the headers for all the tables throughout the report to the brown color that I chose. And then if I wanted the text to be Calibri, or maybe I want it to be Arial 10, for example, then I could select Arial 10, points before, points after, 3 and 3, that kind of idea, bold, likely. And then I would be able to go in and I would select all head font. And then that would change the text in the headers of all the tables. So these are available. There's a video on it. It's something that probably will need a little bit of one-on-one help. So if you want to start working on the Word documents, just let us know and we'll give you a hand with that. But what I really wanted to do, instead of getting into the Word documents or PowerPoint today, was actually start talking a lot more about real-time mode, because I'm very much a believer that, that we should be working much more collaboratively with people. And this is something that I've maintained for many years. Way back when I met a man who was a professor at the Ontario Institute of Studies in Education, and he'd written a book that was published in 70 different countries on how we learn as adults. And basically the message is very simple, that adults learn from experience. So when he explained to me how he thought planning should be done, he said it should be done interactively with people. It's experiential. And essentially what you're doing is you're compressing time so that people can see graphically the long-term impact of the actions that they have chosen to take. And that's a much more powerful form of learning than reading some report. And what's also true is the decisions that we make are based not just on the math, but they're also based on our values and our attitudes governing day-to-day behavior, values, the things that are most important to us. And because they're highly subjective, nobody can interpret them for somebody else. So again, working interactively ensures that the client is involved in the planning process so that the plan reflects their subjective values and attitudes. Instead of building plans that are pure math, which may be technically the best, they're truly the best plans are those that not only will help clients get from where they are to where they want to be, but also ones that they embrace and that they will naturally implement. And the only way we can really achieve that is to work interactively with people. So the basic point, of course, is that planning is about learning and decision making. And since the dawn of time, as we've spoken about many times, the traditional medium has been the written report. And I would contend that's simply because if you look back 30 years at the time that planning really started to get going, Plans were being built using spreadsheets, tax software, and so on. So plans were being patched together with a variety of tools. So we had to put everything into, a nice presentable report, sit down with the client, go through the report. That had to be the learning medium. Well, obviously, computer technology has advanced, hugely over the last 30 years. So there are now other media that we can use, whether they're PowerPoint presentations or this real-time approach where we're working, interactively with people. The downside, I believe, of writing a report is that they're long, typically, and in a sense, they need to be long because written reports are proof statements for our recommendations. In other words, we can't just go to a client, say, I've looked over all of your affairs, figured everything out. Here you go. Here's one piece of paper and it's got 10 to-dos on it. Do these things and life will turn out. That's just not going to sit very well with clients. They want to see some more meat on the bones. Give me the background, prove to me why, these things should be done. So proof statements, written reports, they're appropriate when we're creating plans for clients. But what we want to talk about, of course, is working in real time to create plans with clients. And then reports can be very simple summaries of what clients have already learned. So I want to take you through this today. It's all pretty straightforward. If you spend a little time, you should, see things. So right now we're on the home page, and I just want you to notice that we're in the reports and real-time solution, but we have the ability to click the copy button and create new solutions. So we can do exactly what we normally do, create new solutions, see how things work. Obviously, we have the net worth, income, assets, net cash flow graphs, and then also the two estate graphs, pie charts, I should say. In the very upper right corner, also, I want you to notice that there's an actual dollars and today's dollars button. So this is presenting things in actual dollars, but I can switch to today's dollars to get rid of the inflation impact. This gauge just says that over the course of your life, you have total uses, the ways you're going to spend money of about $4.7 million, and the sources that will be provided will be about 4.9. So, you have more than enough sources to meet your uses. There's a surplus. Obviously, if we were looking at the house rich, cash poor theme, we would see that, the gauge would be far less than 100%. So that's the home page, pretty straightforward. On the Compare tab, you can compare any 4 solutions. And I was doing a coaching call yesterday where we were looking at some IPP options, and in VisionWorks, not in real time, but on the Compare tab, we could only compare 2 solutions side by side. So we switched to real time, and that gave us the ability to compare all 4 solutions side by side, both graphically and in the tables of numbers. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes if you're trying to assess the relative merits of different solutions, if you come here, you can do 4 solutions at once. And the reason for that is just that there's much more screen real estate to be able to do it. If we go to net worth, you can see down the left on net worth, income, assets, cash flow, et cetera, pages that we have the 3 graphs: net worth, income, assets, net cash flow, and the 2 estate pie charts. Here we just show assets and, of course, any liabilities that they might have. In this case, none. And there are also these buttons across the top that we need to look at. I'm going to look at those when we get down to cash flow. But I do want you to be aware that I can close any one of these, and that then makes the graph or the graph and table, for example, that I switch to, makes it bigger because it's occupying the full screen rather than just part of the screen. So I can switch to liabilities, or I can, have both. And then, of course, I don't have the same amount of room. So if we look at net worth, we can see assets, liabilities, and of course, across the bottom, we can just pick a year and switch to, any year and see what shows up for that particular year. Same concept with income assets, pretty straightforward. It's just the single graph because it's just income assets. And as you know, you have the ability to drill in. So I could drill into pension plans, see the RRSP for Sue, for instance. And then, sorry, let me go back here. See the RSP for Sue, and then I could look at the graph of the RSP over time. Or I could look at a graph and table, for example, over time. So you have the ability to switch to the different styles of output. But let's go to cash flow, because this is, where things are very interesting. So I will contend that when people have a look at income assets, net worth and income assets, and you explain, net worth is very straightforward, your assets minus your liabilities, they'll should be positive over the course of your life. If not, you're virtually bankrupt. But the problem is you can't eat your house. So what we need to do is we need to understand the relationship of income assets to your total assets, because the income assets are the ones we'll use to buy groceries. So they include TFSAs, RSPs, and so on. So this is, again, the opportunity to sort of explain the basic themes. And then I would contend that once people understand the basic themes, what this is saying, that's when they'll ask questions. And I don't believe they'll ask questions about, portfolio allocations or how much critical insurance they need. They'll ask what I'll call lifestyle questions. So, they'll look at this and say, well, that looks like a pretty positive forecast. We're leaving $750,000. What would happen if we spent more on vacations? Now, we could make a change right here, or we could go to the home page, create a copy, and call this spend more on vacations. And now we're in the spend more on vacations solution. We'll go back down to cash flow. We'll drill into lifestyle expenses. I don't have a vacation expense, so let me add one. So notice if I click this button, I'm now able to add different entries, and I'm on the total tab you can see here, as opposed to Sue's tab or Bill's tab. So I'm just going to go to lifestyle. Oh, we do have a vacation entry. Why didn't I? Oh, I'm sorry. We were in 2045. That's why. Let me go back to 2021. There we go. So looking at the current year, there's a vacation entry. So now I can drill into it, open it up, make a change in how much we spend. So we'll crank it right up to $20,000. Click save. And then when I close that, the output will update. And then I get to roll my mouse over the new income assets forecast, and we can see, out at life expectancy, instead of 788,000, it'll be 528. So spending an extra $10,000 a year for all of those years will definitely have an impact, but we still have lots of income assets. So those are the sorts of things that I think clients will really ask about. And again, as we've discussed, let's do this incrementally. Okay, that looks like a keeper. What if we did, and then they'll suggest something else. So I would go back to the home page, create a new solution, and then go in and model whatever they're thinking of doing. So again, the pie chart just shows the chart. This is obviously the back button, so let's back up. This is then just a table, and it's a table for any particular year, so I can switch to different years. We have the pie graph end table, so we can have a look at that over different years. This is just an over time button, so this is home expenses over time, for example. And then you've got the tree view, so when you go to the tree view, you can open it up and add different entries and so on. And again, if I went to Sue's tab and click the tree view, I would be opening up Sue's tab and the different entries for her. So again, if I close that and I switch to bill and the tree view, you can see the cottage, as I've always had it, is on bills tab. We do that to illustrate, the estate planning issues in second marriages. So again, you have to select the parties tab, and then you're opening the tree view for that particular party. So again, we'll close it and we'll go back and click the total, and then this would be the tree view for them as a couple. And then we can use the back button to back all the way out to, whatever we want to look at in particular. So now we have both sources and uses. So just keep in mind the ability to close or the ability to reopen. As far as tactics are concerned, again, they depend on the party. So these are the tactics that are available on the total tab. But if we go to bills tab, that's where we add other tactics that include things like, where's excess cash going to go? Where are the withdrawals going to come from? Obviously, maximizing taxes and so on. And then the same concept, if we go down to estate, then we have the ability to look at the estate output for Bill or Sue. So now we're on Bill's tab. We're looking at the estate output for him. We can switch to Sue's tab, look at the estate output for her. And if we want to go in and make certain changes, then just keep in mind we have the ability to compare the estate output for any two solutions. So again, this is spend more on vacations. And if we compared that to demo, for instance, there's probably not a big difference. But if I compare that to one where I have Bill Jr. getting the cottage, then we can see what the difference might be. I guess I'm on Sue's tab, so we'll go to Bill's tab. And then we can see what the difference is. If the cottage goes to Bill Jr., then the government gets a whole lot of money. Sue doesn't get as much. If the cottage goes to Sue, the government doesn't get much and Sue gets everything. So again, the ability to work in real time, I think you'll find that it's a much more satisfying approach for clients. I was doing a coaching call yesterday, and our client has always done written reports and was very adamant that that was the approach she wanted to take. And then what we did, or what she did the day before, was she actually did an interactive session with the client. The client was delighted and actually referred her to somebody else just because they were, engaged in the planning process. So if we use this as the medium for learning and decision making, I believe that clients will embrace it much more. It's their plan. They have a sense that they're creating it for themselves. They ensure that the plan reflects their values and their financial attitudes, those subjective things that are, behind the scenes when we make decisions. And then what it also means is if we go back to VisionWorks in the report section, reports can then be simple summaries of what the client has already learned. So in this case, rather than producing a formal report, if you will, what we can do is we can produce content in what we call worksheet mode. So if I switch to, I'm just going to clear some of these things off, and I'll just select the financial starting point, the current net worth statement. So if I switch to or open report options, rather than a summary report with table of contents, headers, footers, page numbers, text, et cetera, I can switch to worksheet mode. And then in worksheet mode, I just produce the raw content without the table, the headers, footers, and everything else. So now I've got that, and I have the ability to include that as part of a summary. So I'm able then to maybe write a couple of page report that summarizes all the basic points that we went through, attach to it a to-do list as the focal point of the planning process, and then behind that attach worksheets so that when I'm writing my 2-page summary, I can say, we talked about your goals, whatever they might be. We also established your financial starting point. Please reference the attached financial starting point net worth pages, and so on. So these become like appendices to that letter. And I think you'll find that clients will be perfectly happy with that. It's simple, it's easy to read, and it follows naturally from their interactive learning. So those are the things that I wanted to cover today. I know it's a fair amount of material, but let's throw things open to questions. Anybody?
Yeah, I have another question. Actually, it's Ryan again.
Yes, Ryan.
So how do you suggest integrating, like, you have the life planning part of the software, right? Where you can
Yes.
go through, and then the real-time presentation. Like, are those two separate meetings to you?
Yes, the real time is when we put everything together, and now we're trying to figure out where are we going to go.
Okay.
What should be done. So the front end is helping clients establish what it is they want to have and do in life, which really is the most important thing in the planning process. You're planning for the life you want. What would that look like to you? So that's one part. But then once we get all the financials entered, now we have the output, and now we're looking at the financial projections and coming to certain conclusions. We have a new client who has a client who is really just in the late stages of divorce, and she's trying to figure out different things to do. And so I was going through with our new client, and we were looking at different scenarios. And one of the things we felt was that there was about $60,000 a year for the next few years, which was latte factor spending. Remember the large latte factor theme? In other words, the client provided the sources, provided the uses, and we had a $60,000 gap. Well, post-divorce, she'll get her part of the house, and then what she won't, and it won't be sold yet for a few years. And then what she wants to do is buy another house. Well, if she's saving $60,000 a year for a few years, that's very important as far as a down payment, but we know she's not saving it. So, it was a little involved for our new client. So I hopped on the call and we went through everything with, the end client, her client, and just explained, what the different implications were of 3 different scenarios we set up. And we came to a point, which was, you really need to have a look at how you're spending to see how much you can capture, because that ends up being very important as far as the down payment and the affordability of a mortgage. So it's all about values-based trade-offs. You can spend money how you are. You can say having that house, post-divorce is far more important to me, so I need to tighten up a little bit and capture some of this money. And then we talked about, and then how much should be spent on that house? And is it in the current area, or is it in a different area, and she lives outside of Toronto, that might be more affordable? So there were some key questions that arose from this, but she was perfectly clear on what the different implications were of her spending and the amount of house she bought and everything else. So that's where working interactively is helping clients understand the core dynamics for them, so that they can come to some decisions and then things can get modeled. And to me, that's really helping them formulate a game plan that they're very happy with. Does that answer your question, Ryan?
Yeah, it does. I just getting the process of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you have to start off saying, what do you want to have and do in life? But once we've assembled it all, then we're looking at the output and we're coming back to the 5 themes. Is this house rich, cash poor, which it would be in this lady's case. You know, if she, you know, had this large mortgage and everything else, or is this high latte factor, which it is for her currently. You know, we could see that 60 grand a year. You know, there were all sorts of different, but it really was all the 5 basic themes. They'll always come out. And that's how we can talk with people about it. You know, we don't say it's, you know, large latte factors theme, but we say, you know, given the sources, given what you've told us about uses, we went through and said, here are some of the different entries that are in here, you know, existing loans and mortgages and so on and so on. And then, you know, this is what it's saying. You know, so we could have that, you know, very reasonable conversation. Other questions?
That was good. It was very clear. Thanks, Michael.
Okay, I think it's just a question of getting hands-on, deciding if you want to work this way with people. And I really encourage you to do that. I think you'll find that clients really appreciate it. And then it's just a matter of getting hands-on and, you know, just navigating and seeing how things work, you know, going in and, you know, feeling comfortable about manipulating different entries and seeing, you know, what the impact of those entries, those entry changes are, right? So we just went from, you know, 528 up to, you know, or whatever, 528 up to 818, right? So if there are no other questions, then I wish you a good weekend.
And the same to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay, my pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Bye.